Hello, everybody, and welcome to our World Today the discussion when we talk about the news in the unionist perspective. Today, we're going to announce what happened during this week pretty quickly. So, basically, this week, Nicolas Maduro, who is the president of Venezuela, was re-elected in what a lot of countries have said to be an undemocratic election, since most of the countries seem to want to have a change there. And basically, Venezuela has been in a state of kind of inflation and authoritarian regime for quite a few years. So we'll see how this evolves. Then we have the fact that one of Hamas leader, I think the most prominent Hamas leader, was killed in Tehran, in Iran last week, and Iran announcing that they'll be keeping an eye on that. Well, they'll get revenge from the United States from that, or in Israel. So we'll have to see how this situation evolves, and then we have. Oop, I think that's it for what happened this week. And then we wanted to focus a little bit on three main topics tonight, which are turnaround. First of all, the Olympics. There was like an Olympic boxing match, women's boxing match, where um, someone accused another competitor to have testosterone and basically be a man, transgender, during the competition, and that's why she lost. And we'll be going deep into that and debunking the misinformation there because this is not actually the case, and see what the International Olympics Committee says about it. Then we will talk about kind of linked to that, how the Olympic opening ceremony was kind of seen as blasphemy for a lot of people because there were representation of paintings that were deemed to be religious by the Christian, and also because it involved a lot of transgender people and drag queens. And then lastly, we will talk about how the situation has turned over in Bangladesh, and the prime minister has resigned and traveled to India, I think. And what's the future, what's in it for Bangladesh in the future? So yeah, we'll talk about basically the boxing match that happened in the Olympics a while ago. So what happened is that an Italian boxing, you know, professional lost, not really, like she forfeited herself from her competition against Imane Khelif, who is I think an Algerian uh, international boxer, and she said that she's never been hit that hard in her life, and that it was obvious that Khelif had testosterone in her, basically saying that she was a man and she was competing for the Women's Olympics. And a lot of people believed her. I think the media kind of amped up the story in the way they presented it because they said that Khelif was tested positive to testosterone last year by the International Federation of Boxing. The problem is the International Federation of Boxing has done that to three athletes, and it was proven that it was not their test, actually. The test was falsified. Like they replaced the test of the athletes by other people, so basically of male gender. And it was so grave that the International Olympic Committee was the one chaperoning boxing during the Olympics. Like the International Federation of Boxing was banned from intervening in this. And so the Italian competitor, she called to the committee to do something about this. The problem is that the damage had already been done. She's from Italy, who right now is governed by someone that is very far right and very transphobic. And this transformed into like some form of lynching of Khelif online, even though Khelif herself did not do anything. And basically, the Olympic committee, agreed with that. Like, this is not a man. Um, Khelif was born a woman, and there's nothing um, for forbidding her from competing there. The problem is that people are saying, well, she has an unfair advantage because of this. But like, if we use that logic, Michael Phelps also has an unfair advantage when he swims against other people. Like, it's just genetics. It's not gender, actually. The number of testosterone that you have in your body can actually be due to not necessarily being a man, but also to genetics disease or chronic illness from for different women. And also that does not mean that she wins every time. In fact, like half of her matches in all of her career, she lost. But she won that one, which is kind of a huge success against the haters. Well, she won the Olympic medals in her category. So I wanted to explain a little bit for those who hadn't really, followed everything that has been going on and kind of to establish, I think it's our goal for everyone who's talking about the news to reestablish the truth there of what's happening. And also to point out the fact that um, a lot of people, athletes, women athletes of color, have been victims of this just because their features, their level of hormones are always um, scrutinized by the white majority of people in their sports as an unfair advantage instead of seeing the work that they put into their sport. And I can cite like a few examples of that if you would like, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this because I thought this was like pretty grave accusations, specifically at a time where you know, hate crimes against any minority, um, racial or of a transgender identity or the LGBTQ community is so high in Europe and all over the world. And I think it's important to really stand against that if we can. But what are your thoughts on this and your analysis of what is happening right now? Who would like to start? Feels like Sage maybe has something to say.
Oh, yeah. I would like to say that, um, yeah, in my experience, I think in our experience, um, remember when there was that controversy about the collegiate swimmer in the US, Leah Thomas, who was swimming, yeah, at the college level. And people were, criticizing her for that, like for competing in the women's category and everything like that.
Mhm.
And from that, my takeaway was just how important it is to give yourself the love that you need there, like the sense you have to really give yourself the sense of belonging that you want to feel there, and the sense of acceptance, within, because you know things like this are going to happen, and it's not like within our control because we can't control how other people feel and think. But the beautiful thing is that we can um, control our response to this stuff coming up. And it's really for me, it was bringing me healing about like belonging and being accepted. So I just wanted to say that to anybody who's watching who might feel that way, like might feel triggered in that area of feeling like, oh, people are saying that like I don't belong. Well, by saying that Imane Khelif doesn't belong, right, in her category. So I just wanted to mention that. And with this healing work that we do, you can bring yourself to peace within. And yeah, it's really helpful because stuff's going to happen, in the world like this. But the point of it is so you can go to that part of you within and give yourself the love you need.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And also, like, no amount of hormone in your body determines your gender. Yeah, like you were saying, Yuri, like that could just be genetics, and um, yeah. So they never actually had a test that actually shared the testosterone, like that she had.
It was not her. Like they took a male test and replaced it by hers and announced that she was the one with testosterone. So we don't even know if she has a
Ah,
high level of testosterone. That's the worst thing. So she's facing a transphobic backlash for not being involved in anything transgender related at all. And I think that's the worst thing of it all is how the misinformation and the
Yeah,
discrimination was very high in this.
mm, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to say something else? Sorry, I say.
It's so interesting. I guess I just feel that I don't know. You identify yourself and your gender, and like that's who you are. That's what determines who you are, and that's like what actually is true, and that's all that matters. And I just want to say that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, like to maybe push this a little deeper, we know that there's definitely like we talked about this even like about how you know, with you both, like it was never about like the level of hormones or your identifying as one gender or another were never really changed your like sports performance. And so I think it's kind of time to um start to put that aside, even if she was a trans woman. I don't think um it would have been the only thing categorizing like her winning matches and punching hard or something like that. And I feel like the Italian competitor, what she did was very unlawful and very against the spirit of sports in general and spirits of the Olympic Games. And yeah, anyone else wanted to say something, Granville?
So, so the thing that Sage mentioned and shared around acceptance, I feel is something that we probably need to explore at a deeper level because, we're saying to people it's about accepting yourself. And really, the truth of it is, in order to accept yourself, you kind of have to get into the core of your personal truth. And so I feel like there's almost a misalignment with that person's personal truth that's not quite allowing them to accept themselves. And so, in the teaching, it's very easy to say this is what you need to do. But the question is, how do you do it? I think that's what we need to start exploring is how do you get to that space where you truly identify with your truth, where your truth doesn't bother you. And then it's the next level of also getting to the point of releasing the feeling that the world is unsafe and that attack is real, because this sounds like almost an attack at the core. So at which point are you actually resisting, resenting, or rebelling against yourself? Because those energies internally will attract that in your reality, and we do want to teach people, and we have taught people, that your choice is sacrosanct, that your choice is the most powerful thing, but kind of your choice has to be centered in truth. And so where are you fighting your truth? And that is what is actually being shown to us. It's getting back to the reality of the core of who you are and accepting that, even if it feels a little bit illogical at the time. Because some things are not going to be mentally understood, they kind of need to be felt. It needs to be undeniable in the feeling of it, so that in accepting that undeniability, you accept yourself.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up too. I wanted to say that, like what you were saying, when these things come up, for both for her, Imane, Khelif, and for anyone who's watching it, the reason it's coming up, like you were saying, is because people have these feelings within themselves, and the world, like the events of the world come, and it's just sort of kind of like the movie projector, like projecting that, what's the feelings that are within you get projected onto like the screen of life's experiences, right? So maybe we can't really say for her, I haven't heard anything from her, understandably, about how she feels about it, but chances are this would trigger her to look at her feelings about her own identity, whatever it is, and to love herself there would be the ultimate goal. And you really arrive at that clarity of your inner being, like you were saying, by just bringing peace to the upset places by loving yourself. And it's a very like unattached process. It's only about like healing the parts of you within who are feeling hurt and giving them the love that they need without an agenda. Like, you don't have to be super like dialed into the question, to any question of like, who am I, or something like that. Or like, if anyone ever is doubting their gender identity, you don't have to be super dialed into that. You just have to feel how you feel about things that are going on in your life experience, and then love yourself there. And once you arrive at peace, that's how that's how you get closer to knowing the truth. And eventually you do know the truth, who you are. So that's why these things come up. And it can seem, I guess it's great to bring that up, because it can seem unfair, and it can seem really, really unfortunate that people are like victimized in this way. But in reality, it's not really that. It's actually helping them get clear within themselves and bring inner peace, find inner peace, to themselves.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. And I think Nadia has something to say. Nadia?
I really enjoyed how Sage brought into the awareness of a hurt someone could have when it comes to being accused in this way. And we did have some healing with the Olympic swimmer of the same type. And then when Granville went deeper into uncovering these hurts and how we can bring love into it, it allows someone to accept themselves as divinely perfect. And that is the truth that we are bringing to everyone, that we are created divinely perfect. And one woman might have a little bit more testosterone than another woman. that doesn't mean that they're classified as a man. Like Isaiah was saying, your hormones don't define you and your gender. And the thing is, it goes even deeper into God's perfection, because what if you were born with a little bit extra hormones because your life purpose was meant to, excuse me, your hormones and your extra testosterone was meant to aid you in your life purpose. Because if you have extra testosterone, especially as a woman, you're more likely to build lean muscle and sustain that lean muscle more than other women. It's an advantage. But in the same sense, God created you in that way for you to live your design. So when you're healing that, you can also carry that truth that you were designed perfectly. And Imani might be at this age where she might have a little bit extra testosterone, according to her diet, her lifestyle, etc. But maybe like 20 years down the road, when she's like 50 or 60, it might not be the case. The body fluctuates. And the same thing with people's heart rate, blood pressure, everything. I might have a certain set that's normal for my heart rate, and Yurine's heart rate might be set for her specific heart rate. Of course, medically, we know the average, but that is not one set for all. So that shouldn't be a set for the Olympics either. And just like the IOC had addressed that, I think they addressed it very courageously and let them know that this is not okay. And logically, that this is not okay. Everyone has deviance within their own biochemical makeup.
Yeah, what you are all sharing is very interesting. I personally feel that she made a new choice, and I'm not Imane Khelif, like I wouldn't know, but I feel like she made a new choice in 2023, and that new choice is felt because like she could have had so many problems, and yet like she didn't say a thing. She just did her competitions. The IOC was completely behind her, supporting her there. So she had the support, she had the strength, she won. She basically did like the best she could do at that time, while obviously continuing to choose her own power in herself. But I think her run at the Olympics was pretty much perfect. Whereas in 2023, like she was forbidden from competing, and that had some tension between the federation and the countries and the Olympics committee. And obviously, like she lost a lot there. She seemingly lost a lot there. What I feel is that what happened here in 2024 is more for us to determine where is the boundary there once and for all, to bring some ethics to this question. Because basically this question is never asked to a man that has more maybe progesterone or estrogen, so be pretty much female hormones, and that may have more strength in the legs, and that may advantage him in gymnastics. That is never asked of a man, or that is never asked of white women. It's seemingly every women athletes of color that seem, because of genes, maybe slightly, maybe hyperandrogynous, who has to suffer through that. So I think Khelif, she wasn't bothered by it this year. So I think there was really like a big shift and a big power in all the women athletes that I've seen competing this year, saying like, hey, I know what people are saying about me, about my body, and speculating. I won still. So that's the best way to make them shut up. And they didn't even address the drama publicly. But I think for us, it may be like a huge mirror of our own healing and our own society and what we're ready to accept or not coming forward. Because we've talked about this a few times with women athletes, and I think the Olympic Committee is finally at a point where they said enough is enough, we won't accept this anymore. And look how quickly it showed up. the Italian, delegation, and I think that's a good thing. So yeah, it's definitely a lesson for everybody. It's the lesson for her, of course. Otherwise, like she wouldn't like have had this experience, but it also has a huge purpose for each and every one of us. I would say that's my feeling on it from having followed this. But of course, like I'm not him and Khelif, so that could be vastly different in our reality. Yeah, everybody has something to add to that, some insights, some comments, feelings about this.
Yes, I like how Imane was so peaceful and didn't react to it. It showed that her divine choice cannot be harmed. And it also shows that women can meet a new marker in athleticism. Like they can show that, they can go above and beyond. And this could be a new path for trans women to compete as women and set a new standard. Because when you're transitioning, you also are getting that makeup as a woman, and your muscle mass will decrease and be according to how a woman's body will be. But they can also set that standard, and which is why it's great to see that this can be grounded into heaven on earth. There can be new athletic feats that are occurring.
Sage, did you want to say something as a closing thought?
Yeah, I think to the best of our knowledge today, in the world, we don't really, well, we definitely don't have the full scientific picture, right? About like where trans women fit into athletics. And it really depends on the sport and on a lot of other things. We talked before about how you have to separate you have to when you're looking at this question, separate kind of like the transphobia from the actual scientific question, and when it comes to the scientific question, we like don't really have clarity here at all, like right now. So because trans people are very understudied, so we don't really know that. But yeah, so we have to remember that, and it's okay for us to ask that question because it's natural to ask that question. But on the other hand, yeah, we don't want it to like we want to draw a boundary with it spiraling into just like transphobia, or also just unnecessarily policing people's bodies. And this has happened before too. Like there were a year or two ago, some runners from Namibia, or maybe it was just one, like a woman from Namibia who was taking part in running competitions, and she was banned from doing it for some time because she just has high testosterone levels, endogenously. So yeah, and it shows how, these things that come up, like these blocks, are something for all of us to heal. It's not just like one person's issue. It's a universal thing that manifests differently for all of us, which is self-acceptance, being, coming up.
I thought of that a little bit when we were talking about it in the past few minutes. I would love to see, it may take a long time, but research on, for example, how sprinting is different for men and women, and how a world record is broken in relation to them having different levels of hormones, or is it actually that, or is it more like muscle memory and strength? And seeing where we could fit people of transgender identity into these competitions by having a certain normal level of whatever is needed to measure before a competition so that they can participate fair and square with everybody. Obviously, it's not about saying like if a man has more strength and more speed in an athletics arena, like obviously we're not going to do a competition with professional men and professional women mixed up together if that's not compassionate. We would like to really have a scale where everybody can participate. But for now, the only rules that are effective are to be biologically woman to participate in a women's sport and biologically man to participate in a man's sport. Hopefully we can get a lot more advanced from there. But yeah, and hopefully that question won't be buried after the Olympics is done.
And I think that's the key thing, right? The key thing is that the sense of inclusion, regardless of kind of categorical types, needs to expand. So you kind of need to create the space for the debate. You need to create the space for the expansion in and of itself. I think that's part of the problem for me. My sense is that the desire for expansion so that life is more inclusive is what's actually being called into question here. And it's been called into question across centuries. Kind of there's always this desire to define things and force them into little boxes that make sense, but that those boxes only make sense to the limited view that's creating the boxes in the first place. And so I think that's what for me is the greater requirement and the greater desire, is that we want to, as people, engage with other people in life in this arena, and therefore an expansion is required.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think in terms of limiting beliefs that we're trying to overcome, Nadia had something to say, I think, about transphobia, and we've seen a lot about that with Elon Musk and his daughter in the past few weeks, and also Elon Musk kind of commenting the Olympic ceremony, opening ceremony, and saying how it was travesty to see some types of people out there, just like a lot of Christians have said. But Nadia, would you like to kind of summarize for us what is happening in terms of Elon Musk and his trans daughter?
Yeah, so it's coming out that Elon Musk and his daughter is getting into a heated debate because she has accepted that she is a trans woman and her father does not accept that. Instead, her father has said that his son is dead. And this has gotten a lot of attention because Elon Musk is the leader of Twitter, now called X, and he is making it a point to get rid of woke culture. He blames woke culture for his son's transition, and he believes that because of this, well, actually, he doesn't believe in trans people. He is very anti-trans. And unfortunately, we see this conversation very publicly between him and his daughter. And we can relate in the sense that we see that his daughter is struggling to come out to who she truly is, just like many trans children have that struggle. And yeah, we'll know more details as it comes out.
So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you feel about this story? What did that say about the parent-children relationship, and the work that has to be done there in terms of people and accepting the trans identity of their children or family members. Isaiah, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about it?
Am I allowed to? Can I say
Oh,
he's an asshole, but I don't know. But
we didn't hear anything.
I mean, what to say about this? I mean, there's just whoever you are as an individual, you identify yourself, you know who you are, and that's it. And there will be individuals who see you for who you are and those who don't. And like for him, I mean, I really feel like I've been feeling like Elon Musk has just hit like a complete, almost like mental break. Like he's totally different from what he was a few years ago, or at least what he was showing like publicly. But this is an example of a parent who, you know, does not love and accept their kid, and that's okay. Like, but it's just for the transgender child, like for them to know that they're safe and to be empowered in that they do not need to have a relationship with someone who doesn't see them for who they are and treat them with respect, and like to have a boundary there and to call in loving relationships that do love and see and accept you for who you are. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And this happening, you know, it just shows, it puts under the global spotlight this whole issue that happens all the time.
The dynamic that's there.
Yeah, between parents, some parents and their children, kind of regardless of if the child is trans or not. But it's kind of, it's the umbrella issue is a parent believing that the child is responsible for fulfilling them in a certain way. So it could be like with a trans person, it could be like communicating to your child that they're responsible for keeping you as a parent comfortable, or for fulfilling your expectations as a parent, or your desire to have a child of a certain gender, or just not to have a trans child, or whatever it is. And whatever it brings up for you personally, as a parent, that's for you to look at, and it's not for your child to deal with.
Exactly.
Because it's their life and it's their identity and their journey. You know, I remember in a sermon, I don't remember which one, but that Jeff and Shaleia did a few years ago. You know, they were saying that like the whole point of being a parent, like what you get from being a parent is loving your child. Like it's the fulfillment of loving your child. And if the child chooses it, seeing them thrive and blossom in their life, like that's literally it. You don't become a parent because you're like, oh, I get some like psychological benefit from, I don't know, having this child or something like that. Like, you know, and being attached to who you think your child should be is trying to, you know, use your child essentially for your own psychological benefit in some way. But it's not a real benefit, because it only causes you pain to hold on to an idea of who someone should be and not accept who they actually are. And it erodes the relationship until it could get to kind of this point. So, and if you're trans and if you're dealing with a parent who is like saying things about you, like the way Elon Musk is doing it, like very publicly, is also not any, well, obviously it's not sensitive at all. If you have a parent who's doing that, you can just like at some point, like you could just like place a boundary there, and the boundaries for yourself, meaning I'm not going to engage with this anymore, and I'm not going to feed into this anymore, you know, at some point. But I could see why she would want to respond for the advocacy of, you know, herself and other trans people who are going through this.
Yeah, it's about like if you actually love and respect and want a relationship with your kid, like you need to trust that they know who they are, and your job is to love and accept them, and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything else to say about the parent-children relationship and how to accept trans identity, Granville?
So I feel like it's a deeper conversation around parental wounding healing, right? So it comes in so many forms, and we have countless times seen this almost contrast showing up in various forms, but it doesn't always get this level of publicity. And so I kind of feel like it's serving a significant purpose in pushing us forward into healing specifically that parent-child, the core wounds of that parent-child relationship. It doesn't matter how it plays out. It matters that it's drawing awareness to the hurt, because in drawing to the awareness to the hurt, it also then draws awareness to the opportunity to heal. So it looks really messy as an observer, but as an observer, it also takes you into that space where if there is wounding, it's likely to trigger some level of requirement for healing. So it's serving its purpose. It just might sound really hectic in the way that it's serving its purpose, right? But I feel like sometimes you kind of sometimes your healing, you kind of almost need to have the hammer on the finger to draw attention to it, as opposed to just a little poke that feels like a niggle that you can kind of ignore because it's irritating, but it's not as hurtful. So you know, sometimes it's just it's tougher, but it's also going to probably serve a significant process of healing at a planetary level, because there's so many people aware of who he is. And in that awareness, when this comes up and is publicized in that way, it kind of really draws attention to it and goes, whoa, pay attention here. There's something for you here. You might not like it, but there's something here. And if you choose to, you can heal really deeply here.
Right, I think it's cool that it's provoking reactions to people. I think it's also a little bit uncomfortable that it's such an intimate relationship being displayed publicly. So there's a little bit of both, because like I don't know, his daughter requires all the intimacy, privacy, and human dignity that she deserves. And she's probably healing into that, of course, because obviously she has participated, in addition to Elon Musk, X, to the public discourse there. But yeah, that's just it. So I loved how Sage said that there's basically something to heal for those people with limiting beliefs about this, how they are comfortable with a certain reality, and they kind of are not compassionate or not loving in the case of Elon Musk, whenever that sense of comfort of having a child that you know should be this or that of this gender is kind of thrown out the window. And I think it can also speak to the way the Olympic ceremony, received feedback from a lot of people, especially in the United States, not understanding what French culture was about. And I would say, first of all, I would preface this by saying, French culture, we're a little bit messy and disorganized. I know there was a little bit of maybe arrogance if it was too bad that the explanation did not travel to the journalists around the world that could explain what all the art references were about. But I think mainly people focused on the on the table, like the dance floor, with the drag queens and the DJ, and also some trans artists that were there doing a catwalk and then dancing and voguing, which is part of French culture a lot. And they compared it to Leonardo da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper and called it blasphemy. So first of all, the organizers and the art director said that it was the Feast of Dionysus, which kind of matches up because there are cities all around the table, not just one side of it. And the crazy cuckoo singer at the end of it was painting olive blue, was supposed to represent Dionysus. But even if it was representing the Last Supper, the discourse of having like souls in perdition just for watching that or just participating in that or just blaspheming on Jesus's name, that's just a painting. That's not the Last Supper in the Bible. That's a painting. And the references to paintings in this ceremony there were a lot of them, references to literature and paintings and things like that. And I think it opened ways for a lot of people to just be very verbally violent around having people about criticizing drag queens and men with and women with birds and beards, yeah, and trans people. So I'm just curious about your feeling about this all, because I personally, knowing all the details, think this is ridiculous. My family was very conservative. They love the opening ceremony. I feel like sometimes we just get too much into crying out wolf, and playing victims and like calling blasphemy because yeah, that's my point of view, but I would be curious to know what you guys are thinking about this. Grenville is thinking, Isaiah is laughing. So what's up?
Like when you share that, I feel like the core of our conversation is about finding the truth. Like it's come through almost every part of the conversation today. It's the desire or the behavior of avoiding the truth by not doing the work, right? So it's easier to actually point fingers, sling mud, anything other than actually looking at the core of the truth and going, what does this really mean? And is it actually attacking? Is it actually blasphemous? What are we not bothering to understand about somebody else? And I think that is the core of it. It's like, get off your high horse and actually think logically before you sling mud, because it's very easy for somebody else to pick up that mud. I mean, the same person who has this massive outcry about the Olympics opening ceremony is the same person that's actually making himself look like a tool to the rest of the world, and yet is going to at some point still expect the world to support this massive communications platform that he has, but it feels like he doesn't know how to truly communicate. You know, it kind of comes back to the truth of it.
That's interesting. I was just about to ask you, what is the truth for you, Grenville? But I mean, there's something else that popped up in my mind is that for like about a year now, there's been a lot of miscommunication and tension between British American people and French people. Because I feel like especially American people coming here, they expect that everything in Europe globally, but in France most of all, they expect that everything would be exactly the same as at home, as if it was the same culture. And French people don't mince their words about being true. And we're not rude. I promise you, we're not rude. We are very kind to people that are kind in return. But if you don't respect the culture, we're going to think of you as rude. But trust me, you know, people in the Netherlands and Spain and Japan, they think like some American traveling here sometimes are rude too. They just don't have the gals of most French people to say it out loud and and respond in turns. And so I feel like a lot of Americans are peeved about that. But like, did you even take the time to understand the culture? And maybe that's the truth is that when you said get off of your high horse, of course, like French people are not perfect. Of course, things could have been done better. Of course, I wish that the journalist had some more explanation that just being gobsmacked at what was happening and not being able to explain what was in the ceremony. But did they actually search that? Did they actually do the work to research? Because journalists here, when we go in Olympics in other countries, they do so much work researching it. They don't just wait for the committee to give them all the answers. And so what's going on? And yeah, it was just yeah, it's kind of sad to see that people are just clinging to Americans are dumb and French people are rude. Like I'm tired of that, to be honest. And seeing this in peak traditionalist debate about a painting, it's just like for me it's just unnecessary and ridiculous, but that may just be me.
I think that's what we're talking to, right? We're talking to this cultural arrogance that is underpinned by this air of superiority, like my way is better, my culture is better, my everything is better. And again, get over yourself. Maybe if you share something about yourself, I might be able to understand you and I might be able to engage with you. Just get over yourself.
Yeah, I promise we don't hate Americans. So don't be scared, my fellow friends. Sage, what did you want to say here?
Oh, I just wanted to say, like, in my experience, like, I had McDonald's in Finland once, and it was the best McDonald's burger I've ever had. The quality of the beef was way higher, so this was 11 years ago. So remember, sometimes, in other countries they can do American things with even greater level of refinement. But um what I wanted to say was, yeah, so when it comes to this, like people saying that there's blasphemy going on or something like that, it's not really. So the trigger with it might be like feeling like upset that they are saying something is wrong. it can trigger feelings within that something's wrong with you, and you just have to find peace there. You just got to love yourself there and know that there's nothing wrong with you. And then you can look at the people saying that and you can have compassion for them and be like, well, that's because it's clear that this person's very uncomfortable, like they're living in fear. When people live in fear of whatever, like social rejection, condemnation, or whatever, or fear based on their religion, it can be a common pattern to be like very by the book and very like, this is what it says, and so this is what I'm going to follow, like very legalistic.
Yeah.
And that's not the essence of religion. The essence of any true religion is a relationship with God, you know, or with the divine or the creator, or whatever, however your religion may see it. So that's not it. And that was the whole point of Christianity, is that Jesus was rebelling, I guess, against people who were very by the book and very like fear-based, the Pharisees. So we all know this to be true, that deep down that it's not about that, you know.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I think, if anything, the New Testament is all about following your heart, which is at the core of every religion. And that's the good thing to do and the way to see life. And it's so beautiful, the way people follow their hearts in the stories and things like that. Even in the Old Testament, to be honest, people focus on the lows there, but I focus on the heroes' journeys and the way they just completely reinvented themselves again and again. And I also understand the other side, because I was in Catholic school for a few years, and sometimes, you know, when you're someone who is very traditional and has a great fear of going to hell, which is like a legitimate fear for Christian people, well, they then transfer that fear to you, and I had that fear sometimes, and it went down to the point where people called Harry Potter blasphemous because it has wizards and witches, and Halloween was blasphemous as well, things like that. And when you're a kid you're impressionable, like you believe that, sadly. But then, like, I was like, oh, I love Harry Potter. I don't see it as it's all about relationship in Harry Potter. I don't really see like the wizardry all that much. But that's my own personal opinion. And so seeing it as blasphemous, a children's book, that felt wrong to me. But I was like, oh, all right, that just doesn't feel right in my heart, but I'll stay there. And then I stayed there in spirituality because of what felt good, because of the senses of community, of getting together, of prayer, of good, of joy, passion, love, you know? And I have so much compassion for so many people that focus on what would get them to hell or what could get them to heaven, and completely forgetting the core message, to be friendly with your brothers and sisters, and loving them, and getting to understand them. And that's all I would have to say on that. So any last words? We have 1 minute. Do you feel good? Yeah, good. Well, thank you, friends, for that discussion. A very trans identity and Olympic based today. It was good, though. I think it was important to talk about it. Thank you to everyone who has watched this video on our Facebook group live, and thank you to everyone who will be watching us from YouTube. And if you enjoyed that discussion, please like, subscribe, and comment so we can do more of those. See you soon. Thank you.